A while back, when I was driving almost exclusively for Lyft, I put the app on. It was a Saturday morning, and I was driving through Mill Valley, and I got a ping, which struck me as kind of curious because the address was on Morning Sun Avenue in Mill Valley. And Morning Sun Avenue in Mill Valley was significant to me because that's the street where I lived with my fiance, Kristen. We rented a house on Morning Sun. And it was in that house that I became aware of the difference between true love and something else. We lived there for about a year, and at the conclusion of that year, we knew that we were not right for each other. So I followed the navigation of Waze and made my way to the house of a guy who was just about, I would say 400 or 500 yards from the house that I had lived in with Kristen. And it brought back a lot of memories. Got in the car, and he needed a ride over to Berkeley. And, we had some small talk at first. I knew it was going to be a long ride, and the guy seemed to be in a pretty good state of mind. And so I asked him why he's going over to Berkeley at this hour. And he kind of head faked a little bit. I don't know if you can see down there, by the way, a little bit closer. I'm going to do there are a couple deer down there. I'm going to come back to the sunrise now. So it was pretty soon into the conversation where the guy just kind of blurted it out. He said, well, I'm going over to pick up my car because I got laid last night. And he had a pretty good smile on his face. He felt good about it. And so we talked a little bit about what had happened. He met someone in a bar in San Francisco, and they hit it off, and they had a fair amount to drink, I guess, and they went back to her place. And yeah, he scored. Good for him. But then we started talking about the context in which this had happened. He was married, and he started talking about how what he had hoped for his marriage hadn't happened. He said that his wife was going through a lot of stuff, And then he got to talking a lot about women when they reach their mid-30s and early 40s and what they go through and how they start to come to grips with realities. I'll have to go back and kind of look at the notes that I wrote up after it. It was a pretty significant story. Yesterday I came upon a poem that Jesse had written, and it was curious. It began with the words, "Shame is a killer, and lust is a lie." I think for many of us in today's world, we feel shame, and we don't know why. We feel shame because we have urges, and we give in to those urges. I remember a ping I got one Monday night. I was up in San Rafael, going past the Flatiron bar, and a young lady got into the car and she needed a ride over into the Presidio, San Francisco. And she had a bottle of wine with her and some other stuff. And I thought this was all kind of curious. And so I asked her what's doing in San Francisco on a Monday night. You know, it was like, I don't know, 9:30 or so. And she kind of had this smile on her face. And she says, "Well, I suppose I can tell you, I'm never going to see you again." And then there was a long pause. And she said, "I'm on a booty call." I kind of knew what a booty call was, but I figured I'd let her tell me. And so she said, "Yeah, I met this wonderful guy on Tinder, and we've been texting each other for a couple months now, and so tonight we're gonna get together." She says that's what the wine is for. And she said, I've got a Trojan here. And she started talking about what it's like to have a relationship in today's world. This young lady was a waitress at the Farm Shop, an upscale restaurant at the Larkspur Landing, which I think is now called Marin Country Mart. Interestingly, I also gave a ride one time to a guy who left his glasses in the car, and he texted me, and I got his name, and it turned out that he was the owner of the Marin Country Mart. But that's a divergence. So anyway, this young lady was talking about how she has needs, and she works 60 hours a week. And as she put it, I really don't have time for romance in my life. And both of us in this Tinder relationship recognize that we're in it for the sex. Turned out there was a full moon that night, and we're going across the the Golden Gate Bridge, now about 10 o'clock in the evening. And we headed into the Presidio, and as we cruised down towards the apartment complex where her partner was, I could see him waiting for her. She got out of the car and they had a really nice embrace. I think the moon and the stars were shining down on her and her partner that night. And I suspect that both of them felt true love, at least for that night. And I suspect this young guy who I picked up on Morning Sun Avenue felt some facsimile of true love in that relationship that lasted, I suspect, for a night. And this is kind of the world we have evolved towards today, with the Tinders and the Match.coms, where people swipe left or swipe right and get kind of a momentary jolt of something, pleasure maybe. That's actually the roots of Facebook, you know. Facebook started from Mark Zuckerberg's dorm room, and initially it was just a way for guys to check out girls, and I remember going through that very same process when I was a freshman at Harvard. We got the Cliffy, I think it was called the Facebook, and you kind of went through and you say, wow, I think I'd like to meet her, and sometimes you did. I remember actually calling up a couple Cliffies just on the basis of the picture. And in some cases, those led to relationships. I remember one in particular, Penny Moorhead, who became kind of my, I don't know if you'd call it a steady, but she used to come watch me at the squash matches and in my lacrosse games. And I really wanted to impress her. That's kind of what we want. We want to be in a situation where we feel at home with someone. Now I'm going to stop this so I can pull out the words to the rest of the words to the poem that Jesse wrote, which I think provide a touchstone for the thoughts about true love.